The sky turned black on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Taisu was drinking his coffee when the first reports came in. He set down his cup slowly, watching the screens fill with images that would change human history forever. 1,000 alien ships hung above Earth like dark clouds, blocking out the sun across entire continents. He had known this day would come. Everyone had known, ever since that first contact 30 years ago when a Valorian scout ship crashed in the Pacific Ocean. The aliens they found inside were dead, but their computers told humanity everything it needed to know. The Valorian Empire had conquered 17 star systems. They showed no mercy. They took what they wanted, and Earth was next. Taisu walked through the underground command center buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Men and women in uniform rushed past him, their faces showing the fear they were trying to hide. He understood that fear. He felt it too. But he had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, and he would not let fear stop him now. His daughter Yuna met him at the main control room. She was 32 years old, a captain in the defense forces, and she had her mother's sharp eyes. Her mother had died 10 years ago, working herself to exhaustion in the weapons factories below the surface. Like so many others, she had given her life to prepare humanity for this war. "Father," Yuna said, her voice steady, "they are sending a message." The alien transmission played on every screen in the room. The Valorian who appeared was 8 feet tall, covered in armor that seemed to move like a living thing. Its face was flat, with 4 eyes that showed no emotion. When it spoke, the translation software turned its growling language into cold, clear words. "Humans of Earth, you have 1 planetary rotation to surrender your world to the Valorian Empire. If you refuse, we will take it by force. Every man, woman, and child will be enslaved or destroyed. This is your only warning." The message ended. Silence filled the control room. "What do we do?" asked one of the young officers, his voice shaking. Taisu looked at the screens showing the alien fleet. He thought about the 30 years of work, the millions of people who had dug tunnels and built weapons in secret, the entire civilization that had moved underground while pretending to live normal lives on the surface. "We do nothing," he said. "We let them come." Yuna understood. She had grown up in these tunnels, trained for this war since she was a child. She knew the plan better than anyone. "They expect us to fight like the other species they conquered," she said. "They expect armies and battles and a quick surrender." Taisu nodded. "They have never faced humans before. The deadline passed without a response from Earth. No surrender. No negotiation. Just silence." General Vordek, commander of the Valorian ground forces, stood on his flagship and watched the planet below. He had conquered 6 worlds himself, and he had never lost a battle. These humans were primitive, barely capable of reaching their own moon. They would fall within days. "Begin the landing," he ordered. Drop pods fell from the sky like metal rain. 1 million Valorian soldiers descended on Earth, the largest invasion force the Empire had ever sent to a single world. They landed on the great empty plains of Central Asia, where their sensors had detected no military installations, no defense systems. Nothing but grass and wind. The first soldiers emerged from their pods and formed perfect lines. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight. Their weapons could destroy tanks with a single shot. They marched forward, scanning for the enemy they expected to find. They found nothing. Vortek watched through satellite feeds as his army spread across the plains. His officers reported empty cities, abandoned farms, no resistance of any kind. The humans had not even tried to fight. "They are cowards," one of his generals said. "They have fled." But Vortek felt something cold in his stomach. Something was wrong. A species did not survive for thousands of years by being cowards. They were hiding something. "Find them," he ordered. "Search everything." His soldiers searched. They scanned the ground, the buildings, the mountains. They found nothing. It was as if the entire human population had simply disappeared. Deep underground, Taishu watched the aliens walk across the surface of his world. Around him, in tunnels that stretched for thousands of kilometers, 20 million soldiers waited in silence. They had lived their whole lives for this moment. They had trained in darkness, learned to move without sound, studied every weakness of the Valorian armor. They are confused, Yuna reported, reading the intercepted alien communications. They cannot understand where we went. Taishu smiled, but there was no happiness in it. They conquered species who built great cities and fought in open battle. They have never seen an enemy who hides. The first day passed. The aliens made camp on the plains, still searching, still finding nothing. They grew frustrated. They began to relax, thinking the war was already won without a single shot fired. That night, the stars came out above the alien camps. The soldiers who were not on guard duty slept in their pods, dreaming of the easy victory they had been promised. At exactly 3 in the morning, 10,000 hidden doors opened across the plain. Human soldiers rose from the ground like ghosts. They wore black armor designed to absorb light. They carried weapons built specifically to cut through Valorian metal. They moved in complete silence, trained for years to kill without making a sound. The first Valorian soldier died without knowing what hit him. Then another. Then 100 more. By the time the alarm sounded, it was too late. The humans were already gone, vanished back into their holes like they had never existed. They left behind 12,000 dead aliens and a message written in blood on the grass. Welcome to Earth. General Vordak stood in the middle of the carnage as the sun rose. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something worse. From the realization that he had made a terrible mistake. Find their tunnels, he shouted at his officers. Bomb them. Burn them. I want every hole in this planet filled with fire. But the tunnels went deep, deeper than any bomb could reach. 30 years of digging had turned Earth into a fortress that could not be destroyed from above. The war had just begun, and the Valorians had already lost their greatest advantage. They had lost the element of surprise. Now it was humanity's turn. Commander Haiyan Wu had not seen sunlight in 3 weeks. He moved through the tunnels with his battalion, 500 men and women who knew these passages like they knew their own heartbeats. The walls around them were smooth concrete, built by their parents and grandparents, lit by soft lights that would not give them away to the alien sensors above. They had been walking for 12 hours, traveling nearly 80 kilometers underground to reach their target. Nobody complained. Nobody asked to rest. They all knew what was waiting at the end of this march. Haiyan Wu was 43 years old. He had joined the underground military when he was 16, back when everyone still hoped the aliens would never come. He remembered the old world, the one above the surface, where people lived in houses with windows and children played in parks under the open sky. That world was gone now. The aliens had taken it, but they had not taken the world below. Commander, whispered Sergeant Yunbai, walking beside him. We are approaching the exit point. Haiyan Wu nodded and raised his hand. The entire battalion stopped without a sound. They had practiced this movement thousands of times. They could communicate in complete darkness using only touch and gesture. What do the sensors show? He asked. Yun-Bai checked the small device on her wrist. It connected to hidden cameras on the surface, tiny machines disguised as rocks and plants that the aliens had never noticed. A supply depot, she said. 200 guards. They are bringing in food and ammunition for the main army. Heavy weapons? 3 gun platforms, mobile. They can track movement up to 5 kilometers. Haiyan Wu thought about this. 3 gun platforms meant they could not simply attack and run. They would need to destroy those weapons first, or they would be cut down before they reached the tunnels again. Tell squad leaders J1 and Miyung to take their teams through exit 7 and 9. They will hit the gun platforms. The rest of us will handle the guards. The orders passed through the battalion in whispers. Within minutes, everyone knew their role. They moved to their positions, climbing ladders that led up to hidden hatches scattered across a kilometer of ground above them. The Valorian soldiers guarded their supplies without worry. They had learned to fear the night, when the humans attacked most often, but it was midday now. The sun was bright and hot. Nothing could sneak up on them in this light. They were wrong. The hatches opened at the same moment, hidden doors rising from the ground so smoothly that they made no sound. Human soldiers poured out like water, already firing before the aliens could react. J1, a young man with quick hands and quicker eyes, threw a magnetic charge at the first gun platform. It stuck to the metal base and exploded, sending pieces of the weapon flying in every direction. The aliens operating it died before they understood what was happening. Miyung, a woman who had lost her entire family in an orbital bombardment 3 weeks ago, led her team against the second platform. She did not shoot. She ran straight at the alien gunner, pulled a blade from her belt, and drove it through the weak point under his arm, where the living armor could not protect him. He fell, and she took his place at the weapon, turning it against his own soldiers. The third platform tried to track the attackers, but there were too many targets moving too fast. The gunner fired wildly, hitting nothing but empty ground. Haiyan Wu appeared behind him, placed a small explosive on the ammunition storage, and disappeared before it blew. In 4 minutes, the battle was over. 200 Valorian soldiers lay dead. The supply depot was burning. The humans had lost 11 of their own, and they carried those bodies with them as they retreated underground. They never left their dead behind. Far away, in the Valorian command ship orbiting Earth, General Vordek received the report. Another attack. Another defeat. Another group of soldiers killed by enemies they never saw. He slammed his fist against the wall, leaving a dent in the metal. This was not war. This was murder. The humans did not fight with honor. They did not stand and face their enemies. They came from the ground like demons and vanished like smoke. How many have we lost? He demanded. His aide checked the numbers. 32,000 in the past 3 weeks, General. 32,000. It was impossible. The Valorians had conquered entire planets with fewer casualties than this. They had faced armies with millions of soldiers and crushed them in days, but these humans refused to form armies. They refused to fight battles. They simply killed and disappeared, over and over, every single night and sometimes during the day. Bomb the tunnels, Vortok ordered. We have tried, General. Our weapons cannot reach deep enough. And when we do find entrances, they collapse them from inside before we can send troops down. Vortok stared at the map of Earth on his screen. It showed red dots everywhere his soldiers had been killed. There were so many dots that they covered entire continents. Then we will starve them out, he said. Destroy their food supplies. Poison their water. They cannot hide underground forever. But he did not believe his own words. The humans had prepared for this war for 30 years. They had stored enough food and water to last for decades. They had built farms underground, using artificial lights to grow crops in tunnels, where no sunlight reached. They had thought of everything. In the command center below Korea, Admiral Tae-soo read the reports from Haiyan Wu's mission. 11 dead. 200 enemy killed. The supply depot destroyed. It was a good ratio, the kind of victory they needed to keep winning. But Tae-soo knew that victory was not measured in numbers alone. Every soldier they lost was someone's child, someone's friend, someone's love. He carried their names with him, a list that grew longer every day. Father, Yuna said, entering the room. The aliens are changing their strategy. They are spreading out, trying to cover more ground. Taisu nodded. They think that will make them harder to attack, but it will only make them weaker. Smaller groups mean smaller targets, but also smaller defenses. What are your orders? He looked at his daughter, this woman who had grown up in darkness, preparing for a war she never asked for. He wished he could give her a different life, a peaceful life. But that was not the world they lived in. Tell our people to hunt, he said. Find the small groups. Kill them all. Do not let a single alien feel safe on our world. The order went out through the tunnel network, passing from radio to radio, reaching every soldier in every passage beneath the earth. The hunt was on Dot and the Valorians, who had once believed themselves the greatest warriors in the galaxy, began to learn what it meant to be prey. Private Dong Hao was born in the tunnels. He was 19 years old, and he had never felt rain on his face or grass under his feet. His mother had told him stories about the world above, about blue skies and green forests and oceans that stretched forever. She had cried when she told these stories, and he had not understood why until he was older. Now he understood. His first mission, above ground, came 3 months into the war. Lieutenant Ji Yan led their squad through a narrow passage that ended at a metal ladder. She was a small woman with a scar across her left cheek, and she had killed more aliens than anyone in their unit. Remember your training, she said, her voice barely louder than a breath. Move fast. Stay quiet. Trust your team. Dong Ha climbed the ladder with shaking hands. He had trained for years, but training was not the same as reality. Tonight he would kill for the first time, or he would die. The hatch opened into a world he had only seen in pictures. Stars. He could see stars. Thousands of them, scattered across a black sky like diamonds on cloth. He stopped climbing and stared, forgetting for a moment where he was and what he was doing. The beauty of it took his breath away. Ji Yan pulled him out of the hatch. Focus, she whispered. There will be time for stargazing after we win. The squad spread out across the dark ground, moving toward the alien patrol they had been sent to destroy. Dong Ha followed his training, keeping low, watching his sectors, controlling his breathing. His heart was pounding so hard, he worried the aliens might hear it. The patrol appeared on a small hill, 5 Valorian soldiers walking in formation. They were huge, twice the size of any human, their armor making them look like monsters from old stories. They carried weapons that could punch through buildings, but they did not see the 12 humans moving toward them through the darkness. Ji Yan raised her hand, and the squad stopped. She pointed at Dong Ha and 2 others, signaling them to circle around the left side. The rest would attack from the right. They would hit the aliens from both directions at once, giving them no chance to fight back. Dong Ha moved into position. His hands were steady now, the fear pushed down by training that took over his body like a machine. He raised his rifle, a weapon designed to cut through the living armor, and aimed at the nearest alien. Ji Yan's voice came through his earpiece. One single word, now. He pulled the trigger. The alien fell. The others tried to react, tried to raise their weapons, but more shots came from all directions. In 3 seconds, all 5 were dead. Dong Ha stood over the body of the alien he had killed. It looked smaller now, lying on the ground. Less like a monster. Just a soldier, like him, sent to fight a war far from home. He did not feel proud. He did not feel happy. He felt empty. Ji Yan put a hand on his shoulder. The first one is always hard, she said. It does not get easier, but you get stronger. They disappeared back into the tunnels, carrying another small victory with them. The war ground on. Weeks became months. The Valorian army, which had arrived with 1 million soldiers, now numbered less than 600,000. They had not won a single major battle. They had not captured a single important target. They had only died, slowly, painfully, attacked by an enemy they could not find. General Vortex stopped sleeping. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of his soldiers, the ones who had trusted him to lead them to victory. He had failed them. He had failed his empire. His officers began to whisper about retreat. Some said they should call for reinforcements. Others said they should simply leave this cursed planet and never return. But Vortex could not retreat. The Valorian Empire did not retreat. In all their history, they had never abandoned the conquest. If he left Earth without victory, he would be executed as a coward and a failure. He had no choice but to keep fighting in the tunnels. The humans were suffering too. The war had cost them dearly. Admiral Taisu walked through the medical sections, where wounded soldiers lay in beds carved from stone. So many young faces. So many missing limbs. So many empty eyes. His daughter Yuna met him at the end of the ward. She looked tired, the kind of tired that sleep could not fix. She had not rested more than 4 hours a night since the invasion began. "We are winning," she said. "The numbers prove it." "Numbers do not show everything," Taisu replied. "Our people are exhausted. They have been fighting without rest for 3 months. How much longer can they continue?" Yuna had no answer. Neither did he, but they had no choice. Surrender meant death or slavery. The Valorians had made that clear. The only way forward was through the war, no matter how long it took, no matter how many lives it cost. That night, Dongha sat with his squad in a small chamber deep underground. Ji Yan was cleaning her weapons. The others were eating or resting or staring at nothing. "Do you think we can win?" Dongha asked. G-Y-E-O-N did not look up from her work. "We are already winning. The aliens expected to conquer us in days. It has been 3 months, and they have not taken a single meter of ground. But winning the war is different from winning battles." She finally looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes that he had not seen before. Something that might have been hope. "Every species the Valorians conquered gave up," she said. "They saw the alien ships in the sky and decided the war was already lost. They surrendered to avoid death, and they found slavery instead." She set down her weapon and leaned forward. "We are different. Humans do not surrender. We do not give up. We fight until we win or until every single one of us is dead. And the aliens have finally realized this. That is why they are afraid. That is why we will win." Dongha thought about her words as he tried to sleep that night. He thought about his mother, still alive in a shelter somewhere below, waiting for him to come home. He thought about the sky full of stars and the world above that he might never see again, but mostly he thought about what Ji Yan had said. Humans do not surrender. He closed his eyes and dreamed of victory. Corporal Sungho made a mistake. It was a small mistake, the kind anyone could make after months of fighting without proper rest. He moved a second too slow. He hesitated when he should have run. And in that second, a Valorian soldier grabbed him. His squad tried to save him. They fired at the alien holding their friend, but more Valorians came, too many to fight. Lieutenant Ji Yan screamed the order to retreat. The tunnels were closing, the emergency protocol that sealed passages when enemies got too close. Sungho saw his friends disappear underground. The last thing he saw was Dongha's face, twisted with guilt and horror, before the hatch slammed shut. Then he was alone with the aliens. They beat him. They dragged him across the rough ground. They threw him into a metal room and chained him to a chair. And then they asked him questions. Where are the tunnels? Where is your command center? How many soldiers do you have? Sungho said nothing. They heard him. They used tools designed to cause pain without causing death. They broke his fingers one by one. They burned his skin. They did things that would haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. Sungho said nothing. General Vordak came to see him on the third day. The Valorian general looked older than before, his 4 eyes heavy with exhaustion and something that might have been despair. He stood over the broken human and studied him like a scientist studying an insect. "Why do you not talk?" Vordak asked. "Your people cannot win. We have conquered species far stronger than you. This war will end with your defeat. The only question is how much you will suffer before that happens." Sungho lifted his head. His face was swollen, his eyes nearly closed, but he managed to smile through cracked lips. "You do not understand," he said, his voice rough and weak. "We are not trying to win. We are trying to make you lose." Vordak stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. On the 4th day, the rescue came. It started with explosions. The detention facility shook as bombs struck the walls, the roof, the guard towers. Alarms screamed. Valorian soldiers ran in every direction, trying to find an enemy that was attacking from above and below at the same time. A wall exploded inward. Through the smoke came human soldiers in black armor, moving fast, shooting faster. They cut through the Valorian guards like they were nothing. Sungho felt hands on his chains. He looked up and saw a young woman with gentle eyes, working to free him. "I am Medic Hana," she said. "You are safe now. We are taking you home." They carried him through the burning building, past dead aliens and destroyed machines. Outside, he saw something he had never expected to see: human aircraft. Flying in formation, attacking the Valorian base with stolen alien weapons. For 6 months, engineers in the tunnels had studied every piece of Valorian technology they could capture. They had learned how the alien ships worked. They had built their own versions, smaller and simpler, but still deadly. This was the first time they had used them in battle. General Vordak stood in the ruins of his command post, watching human aircraft destroy his base. Everything was falling apart. His army was broken. His soldiers were afraid. And now the humans had aircraft. "General," said one of his officers, "we have lost contact with the detention facility. The prisoner is gone." Vordak closed his eyes. One prisoner. One human. He had tortured that man for 3 days, and the man had not spoken a single useful word. He had smiled at Vordak and talked about losing. Finally, Vordak understood. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to make the Valorians pay for every meter of ground, every hour of occupation, every single life they had taken. They did not care about victory in the traditional sense. They cared about blood, and they had taken so much of it. Back in the tunnels, the rescue team delivered Sungho to the medical ward. Hana worked on his wounds, setting broken bones and cleaning burns. She had trained for years in underground hospitals, learning to heal injuries that no one should ever have to suffer. "You are going to live," she told him. "You are going to be okay." Sungho grabbed her hand with his one unbroken finger. "Did we hurt them?" Hana smiled. "We destroyed their entire command post. Their general barely escaped. We killed 300 of them and lost only 12 of ours." Sungho laughed, a painful sound that turned into a cough. "Good. That is good." News of the rescue spread through the tunnel network like fire. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had struck a major enemy installation and won completely. They had saved one of their own from the heart of the alien army. The message was clear. We can reach you anywhere. We can hurt you anywhere. There is no place on our planet where you are safe. Commander. Yuna addressed the troops through the radio system that connected every tunnel and shelter. Her father had died 2 weeks earlier, killed in an orbital bombardment when the Valorians finally found one of their command centers. She had inherited his position and his responsibility. "My father believed in us," she said. "He believed that we could win this war, not because we are stronger or smarter than the enemy, but because we refused to quit. Today, we proved him right. Today, we showed the Valorians that we will never stop fighting, never stop hurting them, never stop making them pay for what they have done. She paused, thinking of her father, of all the people they had lost. The war is not over. We have more battles to fight, more sacrifices to make. But today, we won. Today, we proved that we can win. And tomorrow, we will prove it again. In his damaged command ship, General Vortek made a desperate decision. He ordered all his remaining forces to gather in one location. Nearly 500,000 soldiers, everything he had left. He would concentrate his army and launch one final assault on the suspected location of the human command center. It was a gamble. If he won, the war might end. If he lost, his army would be destroyed. But Vortek had no other options. The slow death of his forces would continue forever if he did not act. Better to risk everything on one battle than to watch his soldiers die one by one in the darkness. He did not know that this was exactly what the GM humans wanted. He did not know that he was walking into a trap. The plain stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, flat and empty under a gray sky. Once, farmers had grown wheat here. Once, children had played in the small villages that dotted the land. Now there was only dust and silence. General Vortek stood before his army, the largest gathering of Valorian soldiers since the invasion began. Nearly 500,000 warriors in their living metal armor, carrying weapons that could destroy cities. They filled the plain like a sea of steel. Today, we end this war, Vortek told them, his voice carried by speakers to every soldier. Today, we crush the human resistance and claim this world for the Empire. You have suffered. You have bled. You have watched your brothers and sisters die in this cursed darkness. But today, we fight in the light. Today, we fight together. Today, we win. The soldiers cheered, a sound like thunder rolling across the plain. They were tired of fear. They were tired of fighting shadows. They wanted a real battle, the kind of war they understood. Deep beneath the surface, Commander Yuna watched the alien army through hidden cameras. Around her stood the veterans of 6 months of war. Haiyan Wu, his missing arm replaced with a mechanical limb. Ji Yan, her face now marked with 3 scars instead of 1. Dongha, no longer a frightened boy but a hardened soldier. Sungho, still healing but insisting on being present for this moment. They have gathered in one place, Yuna said quietly. Just as we planned. For 6 months, every attack, every raid, every battle had served one purpose: to herd the Valorians to this exact location. The humans had chosen where to strike and where to retreat, pushing the alien army slowly, carefully, leading them like sheep to a slaughter. How many do we have? Haiyan Wu asked. Yuna checked their displays. 8 million soldiers in position around the plain. Every weapon we have built in 30 years is ready to fire. 8 million against 500,000. The numbers had finally turned. Open the doors, Yuna ordered. Across the plain, 10,000 hidden hatches began to rise. General Vortek saw the ground moving. At first, he thought it was an earthquake, the soil shifting and cracking in patterns that made no sense. Then he understood. Doors. Thousands of doors opening everywhere, surrounding his army completely. But no soldiers came out. Instead, he saw weapons. Massive guns rising from underground bunkers. Missile launchers pointing at the sky. Artillery pieces that had been hidden beneath the surface for decades, waiting for this single moment. Scatter. Vortek screamed. All units scatter. But it was too late. The bombardment began. Fire rained from all directions. Missiles exploded among the Valorian formations, throwing soldiers into the air like toys. Artillery shells tore through living armor that had never been designed to stop this kind of attack. The weapons the humans had built were not based on Valorian technology. They were something new, something designed specifically to kill these invaders. Vortok ran. He had no choice. His command vehicle was destroyed in the first seconds of the attack. His officers were dead. His communications were gone. He was just another soldier now, trying to survive in a storm of death. Human soldiers poured from the tunnels, not attacking directly, but forming a ring around the plane, cutting off any escape. Every route led into an ambush. Every direction was blocked by fire. Dong-ha stood at the edge of the tunnel entrance, watching the alien army die. He remembered his first mission, the fear he had felt, the emptiness after his first kill. He did not feel empty now. He felt something else, something he had not expected. He felt sad. These aliens had come to destroy his world, to enslave or kill everyone he loved. They deserved what was happening to them. But watching them die, watching 500,000 living beings torn apart by weapons they could not fight, he could not find joy in it. Only a terrible heavy sadness. Ji-yan appeared beside him. Her face was hard, showing nothing. "This is war," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "We did not choose it. We did not want it. But we will finish it." The bombardment continued for 4 hours. General Vortok died in the 3rd hour, killed by a missile that struck the building where he had taken shelter. He never saw it coming. He never had a chance to fight back. He simply stopped existing, like so many of his soldiers before him. When the guns finally fell silent, the plain was covered with bodies. Nearly 500,000 Valorian soldiers, the greatest army the Empire had ever sent to a single world, were gone. Not one had survived. The humans emerged from their tunnels slowly, weapons ready, checking for any enemy that might have hidden or survived. They found nothing but destruction. Commander Yuna walked onto the battlefield as the sun began to set. She stepped over alien bodies, her boots leaving prints in soil that had been burned and torn by hours of fire. She stopped in the center of the plain, where General Vortok's broken command flag lay in the dirt. She picked it up and looked at it for a long moment. Then she threw it back to the ground. "Send a message to the fleet," she said. "The war is over. Leave our world, or we will destroy you next." In orbit, the Valorian ships received the message. Their sensors showed them the plain below, the complete destruction of their ground forces. The officers who had stayed safely in space, who had watched their army die from the comfort of their ships, made the only decision they could. They ran. The fleet turned and accelerated away from Earth, leaving the planet behind. They would carry the story back to the Empire, a warning that would spread through the galaxy. Do not attack the humans. Do not provoke them. Do not underestimate them. They look weak. They seem primitive, but they will destroy you. 1 week later, Commander Yuna stood on the surface of Earth for the first time in months. Around her, human soldiers emerged from tunnels all over the world. Looking up at a sky without alien ships, Dong-ha walked toward the horizon, feeling grass under his feet for only the 2nd time in his life. He breathed the air, smelled the smoke and dust, but also something else, something fresh and alive. The wind. He was feeling the wind. Hana helped Sumho walk out of the tunnel, supporting his weight as his broken body slowly healed. They stood together, watching the sunrise, tears streaming down their faces. Hyun-woo put his real hand on Ji-yeon's shoulder. Neither of them spoke. They had lost too much to celebrate. But they were alive, and their world was free. Yuna thought of her father, who had spent his entire life preparing for this war. She thought of her mother, who had worked herself to death building weapons in the darkness. She thought of all the millions who had died so that humanity could survive. What do we do now? Dong-ha asked, the same question he had asked after his first battle. Luna looked at the sky. clear and blue for the first time in 6 months. Now we rebuild, she said. And we make sure this never happens again. The invasion had begun with 1 million alien soldiers descending on Earth, confident in their power, certain of their victory. Not one walked away.